You're listening to the Totally Indian Football Show by Humans of Indian Football.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Totally Indian Football Show. I'm your host Siju, and just as we told you, we also announced that we'll have a special guest on the show, and that's none other than Richard Hood. He's currently a coach of FC Bengaluru United, and he's back to coaching after a long gap. And we did see the team perform even at the tournament, the qualifiers, and everything, and we did see a good show. He's gearing up with his team for a new season. Richard, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you, Siju. Thanks for having me on.
We have, as usual, Arko. Hello, Arko.
Hello, Siju.
How have you been?
I'm good.
And after a gap, we have Sayak back on the show.
Yeah, hi guys, glad to be back.
How were your exams?
Fine for me. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, I think your exams, I'm sure it went well. Something that's not in your hand is Robbie Fowler's and his team's performance. We'll come to that in a bit. Ajay, welcome to the show.
Hey Siju, how are you?
I'm doing well. How have you been?
All good, all good. Happy to have Sayak here. Life was so good when it was just exams.
Yeah. Well, we don't have Sandeep joining us. He's out traveling, so we just us and let's start with probably looking at some of the games before we. This episode is not doesn't have a basic any theme as such. That today's theme is that Richard is in the hood. So that's what we will spend some time talking to him, having a free flow chat with him on Indian football and otherwise about the sport. But before we do that, let's the ritual that we always follow is looking back at some of the games. Let me come to Sayak because it's been a while that he's back. And Sayak, Robbie Fowler and his team are still struggling to get that team right. But we did see they drew in the previous game. They got a point, and against Hyderabad, they scored for the very first time. And Magoma scored 2 goals, in fact, but fell short. And 3-2 does sound like East Bengal gave a fitting fight, but those who have watched the match did see that Hyderabad were probably a better side and deserved to win. Saik, your thoughts on how do we see going ahead? It's going to be a tough task ahead. And as we were chatting offline, you mentioned that January is going to be, a great watch on Robbie and his performance. Do you think we will wait till then, or would we see something happen this month itself?
Well, January, what I was hearing that the Chiefs management will scrutinize him. He is under review, so he has to win at least one game before January because that will be difficult for him then. And frankly speaking, he underestimated the ISL, I think, because he's too adamant to not change his, tactics and formation. He's repeating the same mistakes, and the team is struggling at the back. And he's playing Srinath Narayan but having Samad Ambekar at the back. So I don't know what's up with this team selections. And the problem is in India, you cannot not concede goals without having specialized centre backs. In East Bengal, we do not have any specialized centre backs. Okay, the two foreigners, Scott Neville and Daniel Fox, were also side backs who can play as centre backs. So the tendency is to not play defensive and go all out. And with this team, I don't think East Bengal is capable to go all out and play their usual football. They have to go more defensive, which we saw against Jamshedpur. So I think they have to change their play. And the problem is the new player, Callum Woods, who is playing in January. He's also a natural right back, not a centre back again. I don't think what's happening with the selection. And to be honest, the players who has got like Scott Neville, I don't think he's putting his complete effort into the game. Like when he was signed, I saw some of his matches at Goulburn Road. He was, frankly speaking, one of the top 5 Australian defenders. But I don't know what happened to him. Last night we saw Nelson Colasso towing him with him. Okay, so I think there are some commitment issues. And yeah, I agree that the Indian team is not as good as all other teams, but that does not mean that Paul will go and throw them under the bus in front of the media. He will eventually lose the dressing room, I think. So, and nothing is going good. The only positive, I think, is that we are starting to score goals. And next game is against Kerala Blasters. They are also struggling. So I think at least a draw or a win has to be there, or else January will be very difficult for him.
I'll just bring in Richard here. I mean, Richard, as a coach, also you at Bengaluru FC, you've seen how Englishmen, you've been on part of the Englishman setup, like when Ashley Westwood was there. Is this a typical Englishman attitude that he's doing? Because even after the game against Hyderabad, he was like, "We have a team that's fit for I League." I mean, and we have to prove ourselves for ISL. So, or is it something and this is quite evident now because the team was set up very last minute, and we can clearly see the frustration that he's not getting the points. So, as a coach, what's your reaction on that?
Just saying that it would be unfair to just list it down to a particular nationality, that Englishmen behave in a certain way, because both Ashley and Robbie Fowler are two very different individuals. I think on the other hand, I really don't know what much to make of it, because we don't know what these circumstances are leading to. Number one, the late entry into the league, the team formation. Robbie Fowler came in a little bit delayed into the team building phase of the entry, all of this, it was all uncertain till the last minute. So wouldn't really want to read into it too much. Neither his comments nor the sort of performances that we've seen without really having a certain context, because he represents our side of the fence in terms of the coaching fraternity, and we know how difficult it can get to be ruthless or look at it from a third person point of view when we know how complex the job can get. But taking no credit away from Hyderabad, who were, like you mentioned earlier, that visibly they were a superior squad and played far more organized and better football. So probably I think Hyderabad sort of outplayed them in almost every aspect of the game. So I really don't know whether it boils down to him being an Englishman or not, but I think it's a very complex situation that East Bengal has come into the league with.
Yeah, and like Sayak mentioned, they play the next match against Kerala Blasters, and we all have to wait and see how they perform. Probably a good chance there for them, as both the teams are struggling. So here we will see a clash where two teams are still looking for those 3 points. Now, still talking about Hyderabad and Jamshedpur, right? These two teams have done something throughout the week, right? Hyderabad also held ATK MB win on a 1-all draw, and that too probably they had only two foreigners on the pitch. And Jamshedpur held Mumbai City FC, a star-studded team, being a 10-man, one-man down to a 1-all draw. So these two teams are also giving us those performances against the big teams that as we are looking at least on paper. So a lot of things are happening, and we can definitely see how the shortest preseason has also been affecting, because there's fatigue coming in players, and probably that's one of the reasons that we see a lot of too many draws happening. You can see the players getting tired towards the end. So a lot more happening and a lot more to look forward to. But I'm going to come to Arko. What do you have to say about Bengaluru FC? Now we don't have Sandeep here, otherwise I'm sure he would have spoken about it. But Bengaluru FC looks like they finally got that momentum, and probably they were playing Kerala Blasters, so they had to keep that up, their performance, and it was a 4-2 win. Too many mistakes actually from Kerala Blasters side. So how do you see for BFC going ahead now?
I thought Kerala made one too many mistake that game. Bengaluru have been more compact in recent games. I think this one they really went for the kill, because they knew the situation that the side was in. They knew the situation that Kibu was in, and I think they sensed the opportunity and they went for it, right? And credit to them for changing it up, during this game, because we didn't expect this to be such a high scoring affair, obviously. Going into this, one thing that that I think the whole league is kind of sensing, that Kerala struggling. They were hampered by the fact that Costa was out due to a red card, and it was Thara's first game. Obviously there are a few jitters, right? But if you don't give the Indian players chances, you're not going to you're not going to have them improve, right? It's as simple as that. But yeah, on the basis of it, BFC had a far superior second half performance, where they had a blitz. I think they scored 3 goals in the space of 12 minutes, right? Far too many giveaways for Kibu's liking. But if I was a Kerala guy, I would say stick with him, trust the process, because it's tough for him also, right? He's also inherited a lot of new players. It's not like the entire Kerala squad is settled. Like they have so many new players from last year also, right? So it's going to take time. I think you can see that he's building a project there, which he did at Mohun Bagan also, right? But he had far more time back then. He didn't, which what's not afforded to him now. Which is why you see him doing the whole reserves game the day after the actual game, right? Where he plays against the reserves on the same side. He's also trying to figure out what his best formation is. He's also trying to figure out who his best personnel are. You got to feel for the guy because obviously it's not been easy for him, right? But yeah, credit to him. Credit for taking a go at BFC. They scored first, right? Yeah, but as a coach, you really can't account for individual errors. The best you can do is probably put a shoulder around the arm after the game, and I think Richard will obviously be able to tell you more about this. But yeah, I mean, as a coach, how do you account for individual errors? It's completely out of your hand.
Richard, talking about Indian players, how happy as a coach does it make you to see young Indians being so impressive from the Hyderabad FC camp?
I think I have a good connection with the two boys who have been doing well for them, Hitesh and Sana. They were with me in TFA, and we go back about 7, 8 years now. So, I mean, Hitesh was sidelined with the 80K squad last season, and to see him come back as strongly as he did, and even Sana took a strong decision to leave a team like FC Goa and make his way to Hyderabad and securing all the minutes that they have done. So, I mean, and they've stayed true to what their skills and strengths are in terms of whatever qualities they were brought into Hyderabad, they have been implemented and utilized optimally. So, on those two, I mean, from players that I know, those two have been really good to sort of observe getting as many playing minutes as they do. Liston Colasso has been a standout again. Indian player playing in the forward line, getting as many assists as he does, makes life easier for the strikers. Attracts a lot of free kicks, attracts a lot of players towards him, frees up space for the other guys to move into. And both the fullbacks. I mean, it's really good to see that Hyderabad has come in with a very clear plan. Like Arka had said earlier, that you need to give it time and be patient and sort of see it through. And with there being no relegation and things, I mean, in this tournament format, at least for the next couple of years, I think teams can show that sort of clarity that Hyderabad seems to have shown this season. That this definitely is something that they will build on, regardless of where they finish on the table, and they will get stronger looking at the age of their squads right now.
Ajay, just to come to you for regarding Mumbai City FCU, looking at the team closely, the team is star-studded for sure, but we did see, probably are they still heavily dependent on one player because, in the offline chat you mentioned that they were missing Bumu's service in the match that was, 1-1 draw. So what do you think Sergio and his squad should be probably doing to continue their winning run and not be heavily so dependent on a single player?
Yeah, as you rightly said, Hugo Bumo is the most influential player. He was also quite influential under Sergio Lovera at FC Goa. And I think the one criticism that comes out from peers, from coaches, from fans is, Sergio Lovera doesn't have a plan B. He sticks to one tactic, and well, if it's not going his way, he doesn't adapt, which I don't think so is necessarily true. Because credit where it's due. I think Jamshedpur, after they went down to 10 men, actually played quite well. They were quite solid at the back and were determined not to concede another goal. Although Mumbai did have some chances as well where they could have scored. You know, I think Jahu was trying long range shots throughout the game. Ogbeche came close with a header, and Rowland missed an open goal. So there were chances for Mumbai to nick it, but credit to Owen Cole and Jamshedpur for scraping out the draw. Right now, I think the team is just getting its identity under Lovera because to have so many players join the club and play in one system under a new coach is quite difficult. It takes time for all these players to settle down and get to the coach's way. Obviously, he's the advantage is that he's got a lot of players who've been under him at FC Goa and even beyond. So that definitely makes it a bit easy. But what I see is Mumbai City FC definitely, making it in the top three, given the start they've had and given the potential that they have. So even right now, at an early stage, if they finish outside the top four, it would be a huge disappointment. And I expect them to grind out results and convert those draws into wins as the season goes on.
Some interesting stuff coming out from there. Now, let's move on to the fun part, which is that we're going to speak with Richard. We're going to ask him about how he's preparing for the new season and all the updates that probably he can bring us from the FCBU camp and himself as, getting back to the coaching. Richard, firstly, is there any update for the new season that you are preparing for?
Right now, we just have the Bangalore League that has been scheduled to start anywhere between the second and third week of January, and we're using that as a build-up to the I-League second division. Last year, we finished in top three, so we secured qualification to give it another go. So I think starting Jan, we are looking at about 4 to 5 months, 5 months if you're lucky, 4 to 5 months of comparative football to sort of start things off. So we started last week with our pre-season. We have most of our squad here. I think a couple of them will arrive over the weekend, and then 2, 3 more in the week after that. So things pretty much have started off with us.
Now, before I move on, I want to say that this is going to be like a very open platform for any of you guys to come up and ask him, or you want to speak to him or ask him something, you can do that. That's Arko, Sayak, and Ajay. It's a free flow chat, so just come in whenever you guys want to ask him something. Now, coming back to another question to Richard, if you could share probably the whole qualifiers that went about, and you guys were the first to actually undergo the qualifiers were the first sporting event to restart in the country, post the lockdown and stuff. So how was the whole bio bubble experience? And yeah, first the bio bubble experience for you guys.
Now, it was well managed by the AFF. Credit to them to sort of keep everybody's apprehensions under check and provide us a sort of scenario in a good hotel right next to the training ground, right next to the stadium, barring the games that were scheduled in Kalyani. I think we were staying 50 kilometers outside Bangalore in this place called Kanakpura for about a couple of months. For just about a month before the tournament started. And there were similar restrictions there. I think barring the fact that the guys couldn't leave the hotel floor and things, in Kanakpur, you couldn't leave the facility. So while the players could move in and around, they had space to walk and go to the gym whenever they wanted in that facility that we had. The restrictions were further reduced. We had a similar testing protocol as well. That is to get the guys tested once every couple of weeks, which was followed up by a far more stringent testing protocol in Calcutta. But overall, we were prepared for it, being part of this bubble, and not too much to complain about, because I think, given the circumstances and the fact that this tournament was used as a platform to get sports going again, it was a matter of privilege as well as sense of mission that let's give it our best to try and qualify.
Hey Richard, just had a question for you.
Yeah.
So, we saw the second division qualifiers, and I think we saw two distinct, set of outfits. One was you and Garwal, who had a more, I don't know if organized is the word. I would say well drilled, right? Then you had the Bhawanipurs, the Mohammedans, who had, who it's clear that they've been playing in the second division, for years. They have the know-how, right?
Yeah.
So just tell us about the second division, right? A lot of people often maybe uncharitably say that it's like a Wild West shootout, right? It's more of a who's more pragmatic, who's more who's more direct, who has a better nine, right? Discounting everything else. Is that a fair assessment of the league?
In hindsight, yeah, I think that is a very fair assessment from the perspective that it is the Wild West, because out of all the teams, only one gets to qualify. If it was sort of 3 teams get to qualify or 2 jump up and get promotion, the sort of uncertainties and randomness that surrounds just one spot up for grabs, that reduces drastically. In terms of the playing style, just play directly and go for the, I mean, have this, your number 9 being the most crucial. I think even in the previous episode, you had comments that if you had option of just signing one foreigner, 9 out of 10 coaches, or I think you said 100% would put the foreign striker into their starting lineup if you had choice of just one foreign player and two, most certainly one of them would be a foreigner. So I think over there, I feel yes. I mean, having somebody up front to convert all those chances for you, our scoring record reflects that. There was a report that had come out few weeks after the league was done. So we were leading in terms of forward passes. We were leading in terms of chances created, and just couldn't find the back of the net. And looking at Mohammedan Sporting having 8 years of experience in terms of fighting for promotion, and Bhawanipur coming in there with 2 or 3 years, and they compete in a more sort of qualitative league, like the Calcutta League, would be a bit more competitive than most of the leagues in the country. So I think they're better seasoned as well going into something like this. And where you said about know-how, that direct football, get that number 9 sorted, at least in terms of knowing what works. Mohammedan and Bhawanipur had a clear idea of it. We had been hired to play football in a certain way, and I think the same would apply for Garhwal as well, that we take a lot of pride in the sort of football that we put on display, and prioritize that above everything else, because if you don't get the results, then you don't have anything to hold on to. So I mean, your assessment of the league is quite accurate in that regard, yeah.
And just quick follow-up, right? I mean, you spoke about the quality of the Calcutta Football League, uh, and we know that. I think everybody on the show would agree that it's top 5, right? The Mizo Premier League, the Calcutta Football League, the Goa Pro League. Just because, I mean, just simply looking at the outbound players, right? The players who are going out of the leagues into the bigger leagues. The BDFA, interestingly, I mean, and this is my, I mean, gut feeling. I mean, obviously you've seen it in recent years. I haven't seen it for a couple of years. My feeling is that the BDFA league has also maybe improved in standard, because you have the Bengaluru FC reserves, you have Kickstart, who actually pipped you to second spot, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong, last year.
Yes.
Yeah. You have, you also got a striker from your AGC, right? Showing that, even strikers from lower teams can come into your outfit. I think Jotin Chanamba Singh, if I'm not wrong,
Correct.
that was his name, right?
Yeah.
So is my assessment right? Is that BDFA has gone into, let's say, the top 5 leagues in the country and is making a serious push, and that is also partly down to how many outfits have simply cropped up in Bangalore over the last 10 years.
I think outfits have come and gone, but if you look at the profile of most of the teams, my first league experience in Bangalore was in 2013, so talking about 7 years ago. And there weren't as many outstation players across the teams as there were in the last 2 years. That is, you have a lot more players from Calcutta, you have a significantly higher number of players coming in from Kerala that make up the team. So earlier you had a strong Bangalore contingent. This I'm talking from 2013, 14, 15, after which wasn't really in Bangalore or saw much of the football there, and then suddenly coming back into it in 2019. That was one of the major differences that I saw. And on the point of Jotin, he has been the top scorer for the last 4 5 years. Has been playing for the army team, and in terms of that, one is most of these guys who do well in the local leagues would do well in the I League second division. I mean, that's just my hunch, because going by how well Jotin did for us, even in those short periods that he came on, we couldn't use him as much as we wanted because of certain issues with his fitness and conditioning, and but he knows that part of the pitch, because for the last 10 years he has played as centre forward for the army team. He knows how to work off shoulders of defenders. He knows how to occupy space. He knows how to hold up play. All those things that we look at in terms of the armory, in terms of the skills that a striker must exhibit or possess with him. So he's very adept in that position. And when you spoke about the Goa League and other stronger leagues, that has been a big benchmark for us, because if we see that a player is 21, 22, and he's played about 30 games in the Goa League the last couple of years, we would prioritize him much higher than somebody who's been part of a reserve team at the ISL and got hardly 7 or 8 games. Because in terms of volume of competitive exposure in a quality league, that also counts for a lot, and that sort of dynamic has really paid off for us. Just creating our own sort of metrics to improve the quality of our squad.
Yeah, so Richard, as I League 2 has teams which are nominated by the state FAs, okay, so after finishing at a certain spot in the city or state league. So there is no real qualification as such to the I League 2. So do you
Yes.
think AISF needs to lay down slots for state and city leagues as such to make those state and city leagues play a larger than current role in determining the teams in I League 2? So that way state leagues can also act as conferences and as a de facto fourth division of Indian football.
It's a bit complex because I think the more license raj we bring in and the more paperwork and red taping and things that we bring in, people get discouraged. I think one is we have seen how the Mizo League has grown over the years, and I mean, if you're looking purely from the point of view of number of games and things, I mean, your last podcast, the discussion was top Indian scorer getting 8 goals, 9 goals. They're still talking in single digits right now. That's what a top Indian striker is. You look at how many the top Korean striker has got in the Premier League and all of that. So state leagues can do a lot more. I think the more local it gets rather than a regional aspect of it, I don't think we can make it any more difficult right now for teams to enter the I League second division in terms of the parameters and sort of expectations required to make it to the I League second division. But if it has to serve as a fourth tier, I think number of teams per division has to increase across the board. That is ISL, I League, and whatever follows below that. That would really help, but we need a longer calendar and we need more teams, whether be it Bangalore division or maybe all Karnataka League or I League second division or the I League itself. We have to have, let's say, 35 to 40 game season and working through that. I mean, that would be an ideal scenario before we start with all the restrictions and things to legitimize any sort of competitive platform.
Richard, we actually on the pod last episode spoke about the fine for Indian strikers or Indian attacking players, and we sort of touched upon the youth leagues, the under 13, under 15, under 17, and so on and so forth. So just want to understand how you and Mangi and the team go about in terms of scouting, looking out for players, and giving them the pathway to grow at Bengaluru United.
So one thing is that we played 25 matches last year and we went through 64 players throughout the year. There were hardly about 7 or 8 names that have been with us since July 2019 leading until now. So we can't say experiments, but because last year was a very big sort of surprise at us. We thought we were only going to play the Bangalore League. Last minute we got entry into the I League second division because of certain loopholes that we found with the league table year before last. And so that was more of a wild card entry that we got. So we started bringing in players last minute. Then we had a bit of time to build a team for this tournament. And if you're asking in terms of what exactly goes behind bringing in these players and developing them, I think development, the only way we can sort of interpret that word at the senior level is that find the right players and utilize them in the best way possible. So number one, the team does well, and if they're ambitious enough, they move up a couple of divisions because looking at the fact that we are in officially second tier of India, but unofficially the third tier of India, as long as the other two leagues remain parallel, I mean, we would look for players with a bit of ambition and who want to jump up, and we were quite lucky with that because we have had players who spent 2-3 months with us and then move on to the ISL and gotten minutes over there. So I think in terms of our approach, we are looking at players who get match minutes, guys who, like I mentioned earlier, guys who have got about 25 to 30 games in the last couple of years, regardless of age, those sort of players coming in as opposed to people who have been part of strong reserve teams but not gotten any match minutes there, been part of title-winning championship teams but not gotten any match minutes there. So that distinction really helped us improve the quality of the squad and obviously help these players develop as much as we could to highlight them for a higher division and obviously help us jump up as well.
Now, for the tournament that you played, the Hero I League qualifiers, were you guys forced to have foreign signings in your squad for the tournament?
We weren't forced to, but Mohammedan Sporting highlighted their foreign signings quite sort of strongly. So that sort of spurred us on to sort of match them and stay in the chase, at least in doing that. We definitely benefited from the qualities that foreigners bring in that are quite missing in some Indian players. And it was a very restricted talent pool with the foreign players as well, because most of them had already left India. The ones who we could target wouldn't possibly go through the paperwork, all the bureaucracy involved with the visas and flight tickets. We're talking July, August, which was peak lockdown period as well. So in terms of our choices of foreigners, it was very restricted, but we were quite happy with what we had secured. We missed out on a couple of players and things. But if we are talking about being ambitious and sort of making a case for ourselves, then it wouldn't have been possible without getting superior talent. And saying that, we had gone after Indian players as well. We thought we would give them a pre-release clause that, okay, you can leave us after the last match is done, but come spend a couple of months with us, give us 4 matches and do that. So some of them did come down and did well for us in those 4 games, and there were many who refused, also saying that they're not very keen on playing in that level, and fair play to them, because obviously they had their eyes on a bigger prize and things. So it was quite complex dealing with a very limited player market and all these restrictions going around in terms of securing the foreign players, as well as trying to convince the Indian players that this would be a good team to come into.
Now, are they still with the team, or how is it going? I mean, do you guys still have them in the squad?
Compared to the previous churns that we had, it's a lot smaller, because earlier we had about 80% of the team undergoing changes and about 75% of the team sort of shuffle of players out and players in. But now I think it's below 50% compared to what we had in Calcutta. So, and I think players also have wisened up. I think we have a system in place that produces results that can be sort of assessed, scrutinized, and witnessed. So I think most of it in terms of them improving their physical capacities, them improving their game understanding, and leaving us a better player. That's a guarantee that we provide many of the players, and the ones who chose to come back sort of saw value in that. That at least if they come over here, while the Goa League is not going on, while the I League is restricted, most of the teams have already done their selection. So including us, I think all the players who've come in this season as well, they're looking at season 2021, 2022, and this sort of the next 5-6 months are just I wouldn't use the word just, but it's a point to prove for every one of us that as a squad we can get promoted, and then bring in players who are ambitious, who want to get under the attention of ISL and I League coaches, that they belong at a higher level. So either they do it with us, we move up together, or they outperform everybody else, and then sort of get attracted with the higher base teams.
Richard, I think the second division, I see that the roadmap coming in, or the mention of a mere roadmap, has galvanized the second division. If I was to stick my neck out and say that, before, in the second division, you saw maybe 3 teams going for it seriously. For example, the year in which I think Real Kashmir qualified, Real Kashmir and Hindustan were going for it neck and neck, right? It was always
Ozone, I think.
Ozone also, yeah. It was always those final round teams which we saw that they're the ones who had invested more, and they were the ones who wanted to go for it, right? Yeah. So now with the roadmap coming in, anyone potentially sees that we may make it to the top tier in, let's say, 5-6 years, right? If you do it in a proper fashion. So now you have Bhawanipur, you have Rinti, who probably wanted to get into the I League, did not, probably going to play the second division, we don't know. Then you have Kickstart, you have Kerala United, who got investment, so you got to figure that they're going to play a second division at some point in time. You have Luka, who also got investment. And there are a couple of more clubs who are always in around there, right? So is winning the second division much tougher now that there is this goal in place?
Yes, because if you look at the cost of direct entry and like we have discussed earlier, all of the uncertainties that go into just having a one winner take all sort of scenario, I think people are more willing to take this gamble while keeping one eye on what's at stake. So once this whole promotion relegation system opens up, once the top league becomes more of a merit-based entry and things, the all the teams that you mentioned right now would want to be in the reckoning for a title in the I League and then eventually jump up to the highest level and making the mistakes while jumping up, finding their way, getting a certain team identity because most of the teams that you mentioned are less than a decade old. I think barring Bhawanipur,
Yeah.
sort of have come into this level less than 5-6 years ago because if you look at the previous editions of the I League second division, you go back into the tournament history from 10-15 years ago, they didn't figure prominently even in the group stages, leave out the final stages of the league. So even I mean, in terms of teams that have geared their season ambitions towards this stage, they are definitely seeing that. Number one, going up to the second tier of football based on whatever the roadmap might evolve into. That's one aspect, and it's exciting, right? Because I don't think any investor would come into the sport without wanting to play at the highest level possible. Hook or by crook, like you said, Rinti was disappointed that they couldn't really go through the direct entry route. They had put in some amount of political pressure to secure the same, but even in Bangalore United doesn't sort of hasn't gone sort of blind to all of this ambition that is brimming around us because we are anticipating it will be a lot more competitive in the season to come, and people will put in a lot more resources to sort of get closer to the prize once the roadmap opens up.
Yeah, so continuing from the aspect of increasing the number of teams in the I League second division, so what do you think about the ISL reserves playing in the I League second division? Because last season we had 9 reserve sides with just 8 proper first teams of other clubs. So do you believe the reserves need to play in a separate tier like the Premier League reserves and leave out the I League 2 only for the first team of other football clubs?
From a purist point of view, yes. I mean, to have teams that don't really aspire to get promoted and that can cost teams points and things, yeah, because I think any sort of tier that has something at stake should have equal accountability and equal ambition within it. So a reserve league would make sense from that point of view. The other aspect also is that if you look at some of the reserve teams, the players that form the starting 11 and then the players that are training regularly with the first team, I mean, I'm talking from a third person point of view, but there's a huge quality difference over there as well. So, I mean, I really don't know the dynamics that went behind having them play at that level because just about by the time their campaign gets done, it's just about 5-6 games for them. So if you look at the number of teams minus the I League reserve teams, if it's about 8-9 normal teams, would it make a bit more sense to have a 8-9 team with first teams playing over there, home and away, so you get at least 14-16 matches, and then base it on the points table rather than have this 4 groups knockout, all of that. So I think if you take them out of that equation, it becomes more of a pure league that is 8-9 teams that are contesting for promotion, home and away, and then you get these 16-17 teams as opposed to 10 games with, let's say, a 5-team group could have about 3 reserve teams playing and only 2 teams that are sort of competing for the next phase of qualifications. So on that front, yeah, I think maybe that whole dynamic could be given a second thought. But if it works, it works. I mean, we're not really there to question most or any of it. But speaking from the perspective of being a first team coach right now, it would help to have a longer, stable season with just first teams coming in there and fighting it out in more of a purist way.
Richard, so just a last question from my end with regards to now we had the pandemic and in terms of youth football, all these kids who are playing would lose a year because in essence we are only going to start competitions and tournaments from 2021. Apart from that, also in the grassroots, a lot of kids have missed out on the summer and the baby leagues. Everything has been postponed. So um, the plus side is obviously we can now restart and work on some of the errors and structure it better and get a better system out there. But what would your vision be like, for youth football and for the grassroots football once the pandemic situation comes under control?
One is, I feel the platforms need to be a lot more inclusive or as inclusive as possible. So it should be a scenario where the best, I'm just talking from point of view of Bombay, the best school football teams should be competing with the best club football team, youth squads, with the best pure academy teams, having that longer seasons for the kids. I mean, just making it as hyper local as it can possibly get, because if the kids don't have to travel more than 2 hours to complete their weekend games. You have a season for about 25, 30 weeks, maybe chuck in a game or two every third week during the middle of the week and things. I think that would be a lot healthy. I think the restrictions in terms of ground quality, like it has to be 3G turf or it has to be grass. Kids can play on mud pitches and things, or sparsely turfed pitches and stuff. So I think all those, the word I keep using is nakras, but those things can sort of go away, because we make it a bit too complicated to play football in the country, especially at the youth segment. And the only way of ensuring more football, more matches, more competitive engagements coming in, and for all of this to fall into place, we have to make sure that we make it a lot more inclusive, have a longer calendar. And I mean, you can have volunteer coaches. The coaches don't have to be certified coaches. And I mean, sorry, I mentioned referees. So if you look at the under 14 level in Spain and things, they have just the one referee on the pitch, and whether he gets the offside right or not, the players just move on it. With that, they learn to respect the referees, and you don't get too much of this shouting and screaming and things. Maybe some people in the crowds and stuff, but the players learn to respect the profession and things, and accept wrong decisions or right decisions and stuff. So there are a lot of places where we can sort of cut back and make it a lot more simple, to make it a lot more accessible and expansive, like giving these kids as many competitive experiences as they can possibly get, giving them a lot more platforms to develop themselves into better players. So if you're looking at more teams, more tiers, ability-based tiers, where your top tier is the best of the best, and lower tiers you have more of a mixed ability and things. I feel that's one direction that most of the country can benefit from. Like I think it was mentioned in the previous episode as well, that you can't have the same model that happens in Bombay, and same model has to sort of be pulled off in Bangalore, and the same thing is expected to be seen in Aizawl or Calcutta. So to each region their own. Each region can have their own style of play, ideals within the game and things. But we need more. I mean, we need more matches. We need a lot more football for the kids growing up.
Richard, I just had a question, right? And we've seen training compensation come into play recently. It's actually, I mean, if I look at second division teams and I look at the amount of money that they might have to pay, it's a challenge, clearly, right? I mean, maybe not for uh, let's say outfits such as yourself, and correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
And the other outfits, but if let's say a Chingaving were to come
Yeah.
into the second division, or let's say any Manipur team, Klasa,
Yeah.
or any of those teams, right? Is it has it gotten tougher to again recruit players? Because if you're looking at, let's say, shelling out 75 grand, I think that's what a second division team has to shell out for every year under 21, from the between 18 and 21, if I'm not wrong, right? uh has it got tougher for those teams to now get in and get quality talent, because because of these financial restrictions?
I'm still coming to grips with understanding the whole compensation model right now, because there are a lot of ways of working it out. Maybe we pay the player a little bit less, and chunk of his salary goes to the club. The club completely eliminates the compensation to be paid, as long as we pay the player and take his wages off the books and things like that. So in terms of it being a stumbling block in securing a certain talent, I really haven't seen too many scenarios. Whereas I heard a couple of days back, one of the players wants to come to us, and he'll pay for the compensation out of his own pocket, but he wants to come to us because there is some tiff between the holding club and the player in concern and things. So One is like I mentioned, I don't have a clear understanding of how this whole model unfolds. But anywhere where there's money involved, clubs desire to secure a certain talent, and the talent's ambition to go there and make something of himself. I think you will find a way, a middle ground to sort of work around that. But the minute it becomes a case of the club desperately wants him, the player doesn't want to go there, and the selling club or a club that has developed and demands that money, then it makes it very difficult to sort of work around that compensation model. So you could just see the player sitting out that season or those 3-4 months in question, because that money becomes a stumbling block. So more than, I think, it discourages the players. Maybe it can cost the player 2-3 months of active football as well. And I may be completely wrong, because I'm just talking in terms of couple of cases that we've experienced ourselves. But if it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, all of that, like with anything new, I think criticism is always outweighs the praise for it. So I think we need to see this whole model unfold before we try and understand where exactly does it fit in, and how easy is it for teams in the lower divisions to cope with the demand.
And just like I noticed this trend, and for the last 9 years, I think eight second divisions campaigns have been won by northeastern teams, right? Starting from Sikkim United to your Royal Waingdo to Neroka to Trau to Aizawl. Notice some memorable victories. The last season was an outlier, not this qualifiers. The season that was interrupted due to COVID was an outlier, because I don't think there were any northeastern teams.
Because all the northeastern teams have got promoted, right? So I don't think there are any more to sort of come up again.
But for you guys, I mean, and I think you'd agree to this. It's definitely a much more of a advantage, right? If these guys don't not there, because usually they're really tough to compete against, right? I mean, even if they have all northeastern players, you're in for a fight. Right? Is that something that you noticed?
And sort of creating an internal report for the existing league, we had come across something known as gainline analytics by this guy named Ben Darwin. So he spoke about team cohesion and I think team network index and things like that. And over there, I mean, long story short, it was pretty much that the cohesion in the team is what decides eventual success. So it can boil down to things like languages, familiarity with each other, shared experiences comparatively, having a similar squad, not too much of a squad churn and things like that. So I think Northeastern, let's just take the Manipuri model. Manipuri players led by a couple of foreigners, guided by Manipuri coaches. And we keep talking a lot about qualifications and things like that, but they're producing more players in any other region of the country. Like you mentioned just now, that they have enjoyed far more success in any other region in terms of securing promotion to the top division and things. So I don't know if it was an advantage to not have them around. Maybe next year teams like Rinti and stuff will sort of add that element to it, because I mean, just based on the sheer strength of culture over there, which is let's say it's not really perceived by the naked eye about how strong the game culture and community is, but the Meghalaya League is also very strong. The players that come out of there, I think individually they really wouldn't attract that many eyeballs and things, but they come together, play good football. Like you said, they're hell to play against, really competitive, and take the game down to the wire on most days. So yeah, I think not having a Northeast exclusive team, I don't know whether there's an advantage or disadvantage in things, but whenever they have sort of featured 8 of them have secured promotion, then that tells you a thing or two about quality of the game community there, and how well they can organize whatever resources they have to secure promotion.
Now, Richard, just to ask you, like, when we've seen you probably back to coaching after a very long time, and how is it for you when you started? Was it like you had to start from scratch? Because being an instructor and then coming back to coaching, they're two different things. So, how was that like? Did it take time for you?
No, we were lucky that I mean, periodically we got to work with some of the women's teams, juniors and seniors. We had experiences with the junior boys as well. The 2002 group that Bibyan had, Bibyan and me were in Bhopal for 3 whole months, working with those boys day in and day out. So in terms of being out of touch with coaching, that never really took place. And a year before I took the decision, couple of years before I took the decision to move on and sink my feet into coaching, I had done a whole course in high performance coaching in Portugal. That was an entire year dedicated towards understanding the game at the highest level. So it was a decision that was 2 years in the making, during which there were a lot of opportunities to instruct on courses, design course material, and work closely with Savio and others at AIFF. That was also a very varied experience in terms of club licensing and a bit of admin work. And also, like I mentioned earlier, it had its share of coaching also. And yeah, I mean, the main reason was that wanting to go out and have that level of interaction that I had 10 years prior to the job at AFF. So it was about 8, 9 years of coaching, then 3 years at AFF, and then back into it again. So it was good to get back to it with new ideas and things like that. But yeah, the interpersonal part of it was what I craved the most and enjoyed the most. So to come back to it wasn't really so much of a struggle per se, or awkward, if that's what you were asking.
I think Siju made it sound like you were 50 years old, right? Coming back to coaching after 2 decades.
Less than 36 months, yeah.
For the record, Richard Hood is one of the youngest coaches we have. And Richard, on that point, right? Do you have any words of advice for any young Indian coaches who might feel bogged down at reserve sides or academy sides, who really want to make it big, but are uncertain of the whole way or path to get there? Is there something that you've learned that you want to share with them?
One is, there wasn't really, I mean, not that we've achieved too much right now. This is just my first job in senior coaching, and ambitions are to sort of take the career platform or whatever the direction as further as I can, coach at the highest possible level that I can. But it was, like I said earlier, it's about 12, 13 years in the making, right? Because initially I was hell-bent on just coaching at the youth level, and I had a very strong, let's say, academic leaning into it, traveling overseas a lot and trying to learn as much as possible, and thinking that that's all that it takes to sort of be successful at this job. And over the years, I think you sort of shed complexity for simplicity. You sort of have a lot more clarity and things as you go about it. So I think one is, you need to have tremendous amounts of patience, because back then, when I initially started off, there weren't really exclusive roles for coaching. I had to do about 3 different jobs just so that I could coach at the youth level. So, I mean, balancing just being present, being relevant in the career isn't as complex as it was back then. So I think if you're talking about coaches getting discouraged with all of this, you need to I think every coaching course, day one, they tell you have a philosophy, have a clear idea of how you want to coach, what sort of person you are, the amount of self-awareness that you need to sort of exercise and maintain. That minute you have those sort of ideals clear, then it becomes quite easy to sort of find your way into the I mean, wherever you want to eventually end up, because being open-minded is a big factor in it. You need to be stubborn at times. You need to hold on to your ego a lot of the times and things, because the higher level you coach at, let's say the senior level, the more people are after your job. So if things don't work out for me at the senior level, the number of people who would take up the job the very second I step down or I'm asked to leave increase a lot more. You don't have that much in at the youth level. So like I mentioned earlier, that winning isn't the only thing at the youth level, and coaches need to have a far more balanced approach to it. But you have to give it about 5 to 8 years before you even realize which level do you want to coach at. Unless you have the sort of clarity from day one that I want to coach at the highest level possible, and then, like we said, like each region has its own sort of geography and dynamics to script their growth, and that applies to individuals as well. Your past, your present, and future all depends on what sort of people, processes, and places you have access to. So but you have to stick to it. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. It will take you closer to a decade than 5 years to figure your way out in the coaching industry.
Now, the last one for this segment to you, Richard, is tell us something about your relation with your assistant coach, Gouramangi, because I remember when we had a chat with Vikram, he raised the point that you are the one, you are kind of the aggressive one while he's the calmer one. So, how is the relation between you and him on the pitch or on the sidelines and all of that? If you can tell us about it.
I don't know what's interpreted as aggression, and Mangi has this whole calm Zen vibe or whatever it is. But I mean, he can get as demanding as any of us if things are not going well, and confronts players when he has to. And similarly, if I need to keep my mouth shut and leave the room and walk away, then I do that as well. But it works out really well because I think number one is that he's a thorough professional, takes the job very seriously, and there's a lot of reputation and the credibility that comes with whatever he's done on the pitch as a player. And he hasn't really shed that in terms of how seriously he takes his coaching profession as well. So, just in terms of the day-to-day job that we enjoy the most, getting to the training ground and working with the players, and then obviously the competitive platform, looking forward to the matches, wanting to compete and play, and there is, at least in terms of wanting to do well, making this work, having a lot of ambition of number one, playing football the right way, creating a certain identity for us. I think you guys have met Chelston as well, who helps us see through a lot of the game style that we want to exhibit. So I think as a staff, we are quite, number one, we are young, and pretty much this is the most important thing for us. I think any coach, any level, anywhere in the world would tell you, nobody prepares for the eventual big job, as in the job you have at the moment is the most important job right there. And we are very clear in terms of what we wanted to accomplish from day one. Nobody in the staff makes excuses. First ones to put up our hands and take, I mean, if we are at fault, we put our hands up and accept it. So eventually, the relationship is number one, based on a lot of mutual respect. We know each other's strengths and limitations, what we bring to the table, and lots of independence as well, that we trust each other. There isn't any sort of micromanaging or overbearing or any this sort of hierarchy and politics that goes on over there. So I think players also find it very comforting that it's just football with us. There's absolutely nothing else but football with us when it comes down to it. There's no being overly friendly with one group or having a group of seniors, X, Y, Z. The dynamics are that everybody is treated equally, and you perform in training and sort of convince us that you belong in the 11 that takes care of it. And we've had very limited rifts within the team as well. I mean, with the players and stuff. Like, you don't have that mom-dad sort of equation where it's like, dad says no, then you go and ask the mom, should I do it or not? So I think having the same language as well, that if it's a no from me, it will be a no from Mangi, will be a no from Chelsea. So players can't really knock on each door looking for a different answer and stuff. So maintaining the same language is a huge part of the relationship as well, that we speak the same sort of message and convey the same sort of demands to the players.
Great. So I think that concludes this part of the conversation that we've had. But before I let all of you go, this is the last episode for this year. And I mean, when we put out that we had Richard on the show, if there were any questions, we just had one of them. And I think that was my probably concluding question to all of you. But I'll start with Richard since the user has asked. His name is Hanna Mantare. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. He probably wanted to know your prediction about the ISL final league standings. Some like a top four and a bottom three. So Richard, do you want to pick a top four for ISL?
Top four, just based on what I've seen so far: Bangalore, Hyderabad, Goa, and Mohun Bagan. Bottom
And
three, I
your
won't comment
bottom
on.
three?
It doesn't matter,
Okay.
right? There's no relegation, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Okay. So finally, before I open this question to all of you, Richard, if I had to ask you, though yes, we are all aware that there were a lot of not so good things happened this year, but keeping all that aside, if you had to pick a moment for this season, the football season, it can be you want to pick from Indian, no problem. You want to pick from the global level, also no problem. But if you want to pick a best moment for the footballing season for you for this year, what would that be?
I really don't know. It's a really difficult uh, thing to answer in such a difficult year and stuff. But I just think day one of coaching in August, when we had the whole team assembled and everybody was locked in together in that facility that I spoke about. Just knowing that I mean, that was one big hint at normality again, right? Like we're back there doing what we love the most and being taken care of by the clubs, players coming and trusting us with the future and stuff. So I think day one of season leading to the tournament would probably be a big highlight, keeping in context whatever mess had preceded it with all the lockdown and all the difficulty that had happened, especially in the country, not the football community, but I think all the just the general population. It wasn't easy for so many people. So yeah, just to being selfish, but yeah, just having that sort of return to normality was great for us.
Now, just for our listeners, as I said, this is the last episode for this year. So we'll only come back on next episode will be dropping on January 8th. So that leaves us with almost 16 to 17 matches will be taking place. So if I had to ask Sayak, too many games are going to happen. We won't be able to talk about all of them today, but probably when we come back, we can. And the other part is I-League is also starting. And we have Mohammedan SC and the likes of Sudeva Delhi FC also will be seeing in action. But what are your expectations and what do you see in the new year coming from starting from Jan? I mean, you already spoke about Sayak. You already spoke about East Bengal's how they look by. But how do you see other teams and a new season of I-League starting? What are your expectations?
Well, my money would be on Round Class Punjab and Gokulam Kerala. Like they have been signing some great players, and even Chennai City FC also. I think these three teams would be up there. And Mohammedan, yeah, I would usually go with them, but they're starting to have the usual problems in the dressing room again. So their coach is being again sidelined. So I think they will be rather inconsistent. So I think Gokulam, Chennai City, and yeah, Rounders Punjab are the teams to look out for in the league. And as far as ISL is concerned, I think the same trend is gonna continue. TKMB, Bengaluru FC, and Mumbai City FC, and probably Goa. This will be up there at top with Hyderabad FC, round fourth to fifth, and the rest of the teams should be good where they are.
Ajay, your expectations from a new season of I-League and then the games that we'll be probably watching of ISL.
Well, the new expectation from the I League is hopefully we get to watch it, because as we all know, we've experienced issues with the broadcaster, who I wish not to name, but they know who they are, and we've always ended up watching games later or with an interrupted broadcast. So I hope we get to watch some games, and I think I would like to echo Sayak here, by claiming that Round Class Punjab and Gokulam would start off as potential, amongst the top favorites to win this particular division. But also looking forward to Sudeva's entry into I League. Um, they're going to have a lot of local players, a lot of players from their academy, playing hopefully. So that looks quite interesting. As far as the ISL is concerned, I am still expecting a turnaround from Kibu Vicuña, because I really think that Kerala have the quality, and he's the right man to do the job. Although I don't think so they'll disturb the top four by the basis of current form. I think Mumbai City, FC Goa, ATKMB, and Bengaluru look like favorites to make it in the top four, and I would really love it if Hyderabad FC make a dent, and or Northeast United make a dent, and break a crash into that party. It'll be a breath of fresh air to see these two sides, and I've been impressed by both these sides, and I really hope that they have that underdog spirit about them, and they can break into the top four and cause an upset.
Well, the question is same to you also, Arko.
I think ISL, I pretty much have to agree with, everyone's gone for ATKMB, BFC, Goa. The last ones, I think Mumbai City. HFC probably going to be in around there. And they might still make it, and so might Northeast. So I think 6 to 7 teams in the reckoning. For the I-League, I was really hoping to say Bengaluru United. But, we hope, that to say this next year when we do this, Richard. It's interesting. I mean, everyone's talking about, how organized some outfits are. And that's always a positive thing. But if you've learned anything, over the last, few months and years, that, know-how and news, there's no replacement for it, right? So let's see. I think Brown Glass Punjab going to be really competitive, right? Because there are also reports of them wanting to go to a higher division, and Real Kashmir expect them to be fiercely competitive as always, and it's interesting to see how they do. Aizol always want them to do well, but then it's a catch-22 situation. You know, the moment they do well, 10 players, someone will just take 10 players and go off from Aizol. So you know that also. Yeah, and Sudeva playing with an all-Indian squad, as Anuj has claimed. It's also interesting to see, right? So I think the two Calcutta clubs leaving has suddenly, I'd say, it was open even before. It was just that pre-season predictions would come in and saying, Mohun Bagan or East Bengal. But now I feel the league can come into its own now.
Well, now that was that, and I think that's it, right? I mean, that's the end of the show here. This is the episode number 6 of the Totally Indian Football Show. I want to, shout out and give a big thank you to Richard. Thank you so much for joining amidst your preparations and stuff. I think we had a great time with all of us asking you questions and having a proper chat with you. Thank you so much, Richard. And I would say best wishes for the season. And just like Arko mentioned, just want to echo that, probably the next time when we do this, we will, in the preview of the season, we'll talk about FCBU at length playing in the I League. So thank you once again, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siju, and wish all you guys a happy New Year going into it, and whoever is celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas to you guys, and thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed this session with everyone.
Well, and my final thank yous to all the usual panelists. Ajay, thank you so much. Arko and Sayak, thank you. Sayak, thank you. I mean, I think we really have to send you a proper shout out because you actually missed your lecture and you joined this show. So thank you so much for that. Sandeep, we definitely missed you, but hopefully we'll have you back on the show when we resume from January 8th, and that would be an episode probably dedicated to the I League because that's what we are looking forward to. And to all those and to all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and for the love and appreciation that you've been showering. Continue to do so. Yes, we know there are a lot of bad things that have happened this year, but amidst all of that, guys, have a great blessed and a good new year. Hopefully you have spent some time with family and stay safe, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm your host Siju, and you were listening to episode number 6 of the Totally Indian Football Show. Thank you very much.